Hello, Facebook fans. Welcome again to another Emerging Cricket Live show with me, Daniel Beswick, every single Thursday. Glad that every single one of you has tuned in once again. Got another special guest joining us on the show. But before we do that, quickly, a huge thank you to all of you for ticking us over 20,000 Facebook likes on the page, going from strength to strength. So a huge thank you to all of you. Make sure all your brothers, sisters, mothers, fathers, friends all know about the page so they can keep up to date with all the emerging cricket news like you. We have Kyle Coetzer joining us in just a few moments, but make sure to get your questions in as well if you do want to ask Kyle a couple of questions. Kyle Coetzer, of course, an MBE, Scottish captain, and one of our EC ambassadors. And finally, before we do welcome him in properly, we have another podcast dropping tomorrow here at Emerging Cricket, where we chat to Chris Pearce of the Czech Republic and also talk about news from Vanuatu and the European Cricket Network. Our friends over there doing some amazing work in Sweden, as well as Finland and the Czech Republic, as I mentioned before. Let's introduce our guest this evening. And he needs a little introduction, but he's got quite a big CV to his name. Scottish men's captain Kyle Coetzer, welcome into the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Now, plenty to talk about. Some news coming through over the last couple of hours we'll get to in terms of the Challenge League, also the World Cup. But first, you guys have been sort of in the throes of the COVID panic in the UK. You guys have probably had a little bit worse than a few other places around. No cricket of note, and the Challenge League now off as well, your league in Scotland. How have you guys kept going in your quest for international cricket supremacy? I've seen you out in the backyard doing some outdoor workouts of your own. I've seen Matty Cross do golfing trick shots in his front room. What's going on? How have you guys kept going and kept afloat in this tricky time?
Yeah, I think there's no one set way of trying to do things. Like it's just figuring out what you can do in your current environment, and just trying to keep things ticking over. Currently we're all furloughed here in Scotland, well, in the UK. So we're technically not really allowed to, there's no real communication from Cricket Scotland other than around their furlough, because they're not allowed to from the government. So guys are taking it upon themselves to stay fit, probably because they're a bit bored, to be honest. And like you said, you've seen videos from guys doing various things, and it's because they've got time in their hands to make up videos. So everyone's doing what we can. We're in a similar position to a lot of people, and tricky times at the moment. But there's also some silver linings to it, because we've actually got to spend some time at home. Well, for me personally, with my family, and I think they're probably getting sick of me, to be honest.
Yeah, I've seen you talking to Peter Delapenna and talking about baking with the kids and stuff like that, which is good to see. It shows a human side to a lot of you guys, international cricketers off the field, and we know about all the personalities in associate cricket because you guys, experience some of the trials and tribulations of international cricket more than most. For a lot of the time, you guys are fighting for survival, fighting for jobs and funding, etc. So to see you guys, even more of a personal sense, it has been refreshing to see. I want to talk about sort of the WhatsApp groups and the group chats, knowing that you guys can't really hang around as a team. Who runs the show on WhatsApp? What's the chat been like? How's everyone getting on?
Yeah, it's everyone sort of keeps in touch with each other, and as and when with different interests and stuff. There's guys who are sort of more in a golfing group, and there's guys that maybe play a bit of online gaming. So the groups sort of diversify and separate a little bit. But as one main group, we probably tend to not speak too much on that big group, because that one's almost more of an official group where, because we're furloughed, it's a tricky situation, because what can you say and what can't you, because you don't want to get be saying anything that the government might look upon and think that we're working, which we're certainly not doing. So so there's a couple of leaders, there's a couple of guys that post different comments and stuff. Mark Watton Richie Berrington and Callum McLeod tend to be guys who'll stick things up on the groups, which are a bit entertaining. But we keep ourselves going. These Twitter feeds and Instagram feeds are full of entertainment if you want to
Yeah.
find it.
We're not we're pretty spoiled for choice. We're not exactly deprived anymore of any of that entertainment. Now, the news coming through from the ICC over the last day is that they're still striving to get the T20 World Cup up and running in October and November in Australia. And we know you guys are obviously one of the qualifiers, as well as 6 others that did play out in that qualifier last year. Fascinating tournament in its own right, the qualifier. You guys having the Challenge League taken away from you in over the next couple of days. Is it still basically a case of all systems go for you guys at the moment? And I know it's probably a little bit refreshing knowing that you don't have to worry necessarily about that Challenge League, but down the track there's still that carrot of the World Cup around the corner.
Yeah, I mean that announcement. It didn't really give any answers, so to speak. It was let's hope that the World Cup can still go ahead, and I'm sure there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes. So that does give us an element of hope, and maybe hopefully a bit of inspiration for a few guys to just keep maintaining their levels of fitness if they feel that that's what they need to do, and give them just some sort of encouragement. Yeah, the Challenge League, and it's obviously disappointing. Those fixtures are we're not getting to play any of them really well at the moment, and those ones have just been cancelled. So we have to just think ahead that those games will ultimately need to be played. So they might get played in a in a near vicinity from each other, and there won't be such big gaps, which will help us if if you're getting a good run and you're in good form. Then that's the time to cash in. So I guess the important thing for us will be to try and pull that together. So when those games are put on a schedule and we know when they're going to be, that we're prepared best to play them. But like I said, over this whole 10, 11 week period or however long it's been now, there's a silver lining, and hopefully we'll get an extended run of cricket after it when everyone's able to go outside.
Now, I did say it was the Challenge League. I should clarify. The Challenge League is the league underneath you guys.
World
You're
Cricket
competing
League
in Cricket World Cup League 2, of course.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
to bring it back to a point that you made where, these matches are likely going to be made up over the course of the next 2 years anyway. You guys are guaranteed 36 one-day internationals as a part of that competition, which means, that's 3 years that you guys can safely lock away for your squad, knowing that that's the cricket that you're going to play. How important is it as an associate member to have that stability, knowing that you've got 3 years and 36 one-day internationals to play over that cycle?
Yeah, that makes a huge difference. It's pretty much doubled from what we had in the last cycle. The more games, you would hope that you've earned your right to be at the top end of that table. Like any tournament, the more games or less games, has a huge impact. You would hope that the sides deserving will finish on top. So that's and importantly, it's more cricket and more opportunity for teams to improve themselves and find and understand themselves as teams, because often if there aren't enough games, you can't figure that out until further down the track, and you're almost ultimately testing your team during that process, which isn't the right thing to be doing. You want to be bringing people through and the next generation, but when there's so much on the line, that's just not the place or the environment to be doing it. So you have to. That's the balance. You've got games. How do you blood young players? How do you give them opportunities? But yeah, look, 36 games. We would we're obviously really happy with that opportunity, and hopefully we can keep increasing those with other fixtures and in and around.
Yeah, the key word there being opportunity, and you would know more than a lot of people out there, and we harp on about the lack of opportunity that many associate teams have had, especially in recent years. But I want to bring it back to I suppose rosier days. 2 years ago, almost to the day yesterday, 2 years ago, you guys were able to beat England at home in a thrilling game where 370 were put up by you guys, and England weren't able to chase it down on that particular day. You got off to a great start with Matty Cross at the top of the order, put on over 100 in under 14 overs, and then you saw McLeod and the rest of the team chime in. Callum McLeod making 100 and many. But looking back at that day and reliving that, how did that feel? What are your greatest memories of that particular day?
Yeah, look, hugely special day. Look, it's a day that's going to be marked down and remembered forever, really, when it comes to a Cricket Scotland perspective. But on the world stage, it made some really good shockwaves around the cricketing community. And ultimately, when we turned out as Cricket Scotland, we were playing for Cricket Scotland and our organisation and the fans and ourselves as well. But ultimately, we're representing other associate teams when you do play against, say, a full member. And we're the same when other associate teams play against full members. We're backing them to try and make a case to keep growing the game, which is important. But 2 years ago, pretty much 2 years ago yesterday, we were on the field playing against England. Yesterday I was in the utility room pulling out kitchen units. So there we go. There's a difference between two years, and there's me doing DIY very badly. So yeah, you can see the change, and I was, there was a few messages flying around, and I did know there was things flying around. I remember the day, and things popped up on my phone quite early in the day, but I did happen to send a message to Callum asking him, are you receiving a few messages today? Because obviously the man of the match in the 140 run innings, he's going to be receiving a few messages. So he said he was slightly busy yesterday. His phone was popping up all the time with notifications.
So something that I actually saw as well on Twitter yesterday was, on that particular day, you lost the toss. What were you thinking at the toss then? You lose it, you get, put into bat. Was that basically the only team talk you needed? Look, guys, like, they've put us in. It's a good deck. We put on a big total here. They can't chase it down.
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny how over time, 2 years, you remember so much, but you also you forget some of the finer details sometimes. And I was speaking to someone the other day, and I was like, "Did I win the toss? Did I lose the toss?" And I'm pretty sure in my mind that I'd lost it, which I had done, and I was pretty sure we were still gonna have a bat as well. But things change over the years. So probably in another 2 years' time, we probably won the toss, had a bat, and we scored 400. But we were, as far as I remember, we were gonna have a bat, and we love playing at the Grange. We know the pitch is good, and it can be quite a fast scoring ground. And as it showed in that day, it was a very good pitch, and our guys, we know how to play there, and we did really well. Obviously, we won the game, and it was the style and the manner in which we played the game, which is really satisfying to us. I had a few messages with Grant Bradburn, our coach, yesterday. In the last couple of days, I caught up with him in a Zoom chat myself, and the things like this. If people remember some of the details to that game, that the fielding was outstanding. I managed to take a few decent catches myself. There was, I think, 3 run-outs in the game for us, and all of them were included collecting the ball in front of the stumps and taking the bails off, which was some fine details that we've practiced time and time again under pressure, and we managed it on 3 occasions that day.
That's something that we've noticed in high-level associate cricket, is that the fielding standard is, if it's not some of the best cricket, it's very, very close. We talked to P&G, and P&G, their emphasis is largely on fielding. They want to be the best fielding team in the world. Same with you guys. We speak to Ryan Campbell at the Netherlands as well. So it definitely seems to be a huge focus. I want to go back a little bit further, because you're the first Scottish men's player to score a World Cup century against Bangladesh in New Zealand. Of course, that tournament being co-hosted. To bring back another success and to allow you to wax lyrical again. What did it mean for you to be the very first? And what did you take out of that particular World Cup, knowing that down the line, the teams were restricted in terms of the number of teams, but you guys had a great opportunity. You went out there, played some really good cricket. Was it also a case of sending a message to the power brokers of international cricket that this is what we're able to do?
Yeah, 100%. You know, you want to be sending a message. And I guess it's probably become a bit more of a personal thing for me. You know, trying to achieve um, and spread the word about associate cricket, and try and help grow that part of the game, but grow it in a wholesome version, so everyone's part of it. You know, not just sort of segmented into different areas. Um, Going back to that game in Nelson, and you know, Gavin Hamilton was an inspiration to me when I think it was the '99 World Cup, and he scored 350s against. Well, I know they played Pakistan, West Indies, and Australia during that tournament. I'm not sure which teams he scored the 50s against, but I remember them being against some pretty steady attacks, and I, I'm not sure I was fully aware that no one had scored a World Cup 100, but I must have known because, you know, I'd watched the World Cups before, but it wasn't something that was necessarily on the forefront of my mind. But when I got there, I think the special thing for me was the fact that it was actually the first 100 my mum had seen me score, and she was sat in the crowd with my old man, and I think that was the first live 100 she had seen me score. So what an occasion to do it on. So yeah, a very, very special day. But you know, pushing the fight for associate cricket and cricket as a wholesome sport and something that, you know, we all want to grow is important. But the fact that the teams and the tournaments had reduced down to 10 teams was a massive hit to us, because it's so hard to try and qualify for a world tournament as it is, and then the teams be reduced. You know, my inspiration to play cricket was watching George Salmon and Gavin Hamilton in the '99 World Cup.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that maybe I've inspired a few by scoring 100 and performing well in the World Cup. Where's the next generation going to get it from if we reduce it down to 10 teams? You know, it just doesn't make sense to me. But there we go.
Yeah, well, yeah, you're preaching to the converted here. I'm sure a lot of people have the same opinion. And I mean, coming from you, you know, you're the Associate World Player of the Year last year as well. So it comes from a very important place. But you also have an MBE. Talk us through that, because I remember your reaction after that. You're a little bit surprised, a little bit shocked, but it must be, you know, really fulfilling knowing that, you know, you've got one, and you have pledged your service to cricket over your entire life, you know, being a part of Scottish cricket. You're the third, you know, Scottish cricketer to achieve it. How important is that to you now?
Yeah, that's these things aren't uh, things that you go out looking to necessarily achieve. It's something that has happened, maybe because I guess my inspiration and drive towards growing the game globally, but also within Scotland, has been important to me. It's a passion for me. I want to see cricket in Scotland grow to, you know, the best place it possibly can be by the time, you know, by the time I have to stop playing, or people kick me out the team. Because there's certainly guys hot on my heels. There's some good players, and you know, I've made peace with the fact that if it had to stop tomorrow, it has to stop. But you know, I'm going to continue trying to play as long as I feel I'm up to it. But yeah, it's a huge honor. It's a huge honor to my family, but I think more so to almost like a reward to Cricket Scotland, to show how far we have come, to someone to be receiving an honour like that. So it's very, very special if I can continue to give back or give to the game, which I have done to this point. I will continue to do so, but I think there's certainly more people deserving of you know, recognition within our organisation and within Scotland, as well as possibly other players. So you can get your votes in if you want to nominate people. Everyone can nominate. So yeah, please do so. You know, there's lots of people that deserve recognition.
Well, this actually leads me to one of the questions one of our fans has submitted in Shunak Saka, and he mentioned the idea of striving for full membership. We know that's, you know, a pretty tricky thing to do, and I think a big part of that conversation now is actually giving some nations full membership without necessarily making them test playing nations. Is that a viable future for you guys? I'm sure you want to play test cricket like everybody else, but in terms of the ICC funding and things like that, would full membership without test status potentially drive Scottish cricket forward further?
Yes, yes is the simple answer. We all know the test arena well, it's pretty well documented that Test Arena is quite a hard environment. One, firstly, to play in as a team. It would be one that we certainly wouldn't shirk away from a challenge, and one that we feel that we've grown to a capacity that we could certainly grow to develop in that arena. You've seen it in other teams make that jump. But financially, I think it's certainly a hard challenge with everything that needs to be in place to host a test match game in the standards required. It's a lot of money to host a game. So, is that financially viable for an associate nation? Should it be a choice whether or not you want to take upon that test match status alongside your full member status? I think there's certainly questions that need to be asked. But full member status is ultimately our initial aim. But I couldn't give you the answer right now. But I would sense that going into full member status with ODI and T20I status possibly might be a thing of the future.
So one of the things I wanted to bring in as well is that, as almost a pivot from that, you've played in some T20 franchise leagues around the associate world, not to mention, your county stuff in the UK as well, Hong Kong, Canada. Here's, a picture of you in Nepal as well, where, we know about the fanatical fanfare there. We've also had you on the podcast with Anshuman Rath talking about, the difficulties that were experienced with you guys in Canada and earning your wages as professional cricketers, because, that's your job. And ultimately, you need to be paid for your services. So, talking about, say, Canada, but also the positive experiences in other parts of the world with T20 franchise cricket, how important is it for players like you to have these income streams for you and your family as, professional cricketers? Because it's something that you've put a lot of time into, is your game and your profession, and that is as a cricketer.
Yeah, playing is ultimately has become my profession. I'm very fortunate. I know maybe within the county circuit at times, which I've played through, that the balance between whether it being your job and a passion is sometimes gets challenged, because maybe there is almost too much playing, and it just turns into a daily routine and a grind of playing, especially when things aren't going well. But when you pull on that national shirt, it is very, very different. There's a pride, there's passion about it, and it's very easy to get yourself up for every single game. And ultimately, every game means something to you because you're qualifying for something or rankings. Getting a chance to play in various franchise tournaments has certainly played a huge part in my development. I wish I was able to put myself out on the line years ago when I possibly had the opportunity, and I think it would have sped up my development as a player and increased my learning. I know for a fact my first trip to Hong Kong to play in the Hong Kong T20 Blitz opened up so many doors for me. I put out a post the other day, if you want to follow me on Instagram, about some of the learnings that I took from that franchise tournament, the Blitz I was with City Kaitak, and you had to be on your own. You had to be prepared. You had to be ready to go. You can't lean on another teammate, although you do have teammates and you try and get on with them, and you ultimately, I tend to get on with people reasonably easily, but you had to perform because it's you earning the money. So, albeit not a huge amount of money for that kind of tournament, but those income streams are vitally important to myself and my family. It helps just top up what we're doing, to give you, not to plead a sob story in any means, but ultimately, since I've left playing county cricket, I've been breaking even since I've got 2 kids, a family, a mortgage to pay. I'm just breaking even. So these tournaments are really important to me to give us what we can, and I want to continue playing cricket. If I stop playing cricket too early and go into something else, then that chapter's over, and I'm not ready for that. But I would encourage anyone, and I would happily help anyone try and realize some of the learnings you can get from franchise cricket, because I've been very lucky in Nepal, Canada, Hong Kong.
Yeah, and there was that time in county cricket that you enjoyed as well, and we've noticed that it's actually been increasingly difficult for a lot of associate member players to try their luck in England and to play in the county system. You know, talking to the guys over in Ireland, it's almost become a geopolitical issue. You know, in terms of who
Yeah.
can play in English county cricket and ultimately earn an income and talking to Archie Rath as well about not being able to play for Middlesex because he's studying there, he's living there, but because he wasn't playing for a test playing nation, he wasn't eligible, he couldn't get through the red tape. So it is increasingly difficult from an English point of view. I want to actually talk about you were there promoting your social media. I have noticed your name on Instagram and Twitter, Mere Goose. I was actually wanting to know what the story behind that particular name is, and a couple of other people have got in touch as well wanting to ask the same question.
Yeah, to be honest, when I sort of got involved a little bit in social media, it was I didn't have a clue what it was, to be honest. Like, it was my probably middle to early days at Durham, and there was other guys involved in it. And Twitter obviously been going for some time yet already, but I had no idea what was going on and the concept, and I kind of just signed up one day, and I was like, well, let's have a bit of a look and follow a few people and see what this is all about. And there was a guy called, it was a mix why my name came around. A guy called Paul Wiseman played Test cricket for New Zealand, off spinner. While I was at Durham, they decided I resembled some form of a meerkat for some reason, and popping up in different places and whatnot. So he was the grabbers you get, say, at Scarborough or the coastal towns around the UK always have these grabbers. You put your money in, you try and grab a toy and stuff like that. And he came back with a meerkat, which currently it still comes around in my cricket bag to this day. So it's
Yes.
pretty dirty, messed up, been thrown around, been frozen in blocks of ice, been on barbecue, everything you can name it. He's been fairly abused, unfairly so, but he's a mascot that travels with me. And then Ian Blackwell played for England, a mixture of the meerkat and goose, and it just came into, they just started, that was my nickname around the dressing room, and turned into the Mere Goose. So when I was signing up to the social media, no idea what I was signing up to. What am I going to call myself? Didn't realize it was going to become something that people would always see me on. But it's something that's stuck, and hopefully going around, people know it's me when they say the name the Mere Goose. But I'll have to get a picture on of the actual meerkat, the fluffy toy that comes around with me everywhere. I'll get a post out later for you.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll be keen to reshare that. I wanted to look at a couple of the fan submitted questions, and one of them is from Rory Knox, who's one of Emerging Cricket's very own, done some great work for us. He wanted a couple of tips on outfield catching, and specifically talking about the one you took against South Africa in that World T20. An outstanding catch, one of the best catches I think I've seen. I'm pretty sure Bumble on commentary said it was the best catch he's ever seen. Can you relive that moment for us and maybe give us a tip of some outfield catching, because it's a very difficult skill, an art form?
Yeah. Well, my first tip would be probably get someone else to feel long on rather than myself, because I mean that was back in my younger days. I was a bit more agile. I'll openly admit I've never been one of the greatest fielders, but it was certainly been something that I have enjoyed doing, and you have to find the enjoyment in it, and you have to be willing to practice it. You can practice it till the cows come home, and you can certainly improve. So they're certainly better fielders than myself, but I pride myself in making sure nothing gets past me, and I try and catch everything that comes. But there's certainly been plenty of moments in my career that I've dropped an absolute dolly, and just you've got no excuses, But when it comes to outfielding, try and grasp your surroundings a little bit. Try and gauge, practice figuring out how far the line is behind you, and your spatial awareness. You can do that in many ways by putting things in your vicinity, having people potentially put you off but not actually touching you. Just ways to try and make you aware of what's around you. Think what's happening in the air there. The clouds up there, are they not? Is the wind blowing? All of that makes a bit of a difference. So paying a little bit of attention to that, and what area is actually the ball going to come out of when they're going to hit it your way. Obviously, if you're square the wicket, it's generally potentially short and wide more often, so you'll see a crossbat type of shape to the shot. If you're at long on and long off, it's more of a full sort of straight swing. Generally, not always, but you can pick up so many cues. If you can pick up those cues, it'll give you a good start to catching. But yeah, just practice, lots and lots of practice. Really important.
That was at a World T20 since renamed to the T20 World Cup. And to quickly, talk about your qualifying campaign last year in UAE, you guys were solid. I think a lot of people kind of almost felt that you guys had almost flown under the radar. You were pretty consistent in your performance. There was nothing particularly flashy about the way you guys went about it, but you managed to grind out all the important results. Let's assume that, the T20 World Cup does go on at the end of the year. What do you think are your team's specific strengths coming into that tournament? We know you've got a good quick bowling attack, but some great left arm spin as well, and quite an experienced batting lineup. And playing in that first round of the T20 World Cup, you guys have a little bit more experience than some of the other teams in performing on the world stage. Where do you guys see your particular strengths?
Yeah, just sort of touching on that tournament briefly beforehand, is we didn't feel like we're firing in all cylinders. We ultimately ground out the results we needed and put in performances where that was required, and people did put their hands up when it was needed. But we certainly were a lot closer to the edge than what we would have hoped to have been in terms of our performance in some of the games. And speaking of fielding, which was asked, in the question just before, was we were actually way down in our fielding in that tournament for whatever reason. We dropped catches. We didn't, we weren't as meticulous as what we would hoped, and that's not from lack of effort at all. But if we had tidied up those areas of our game, it might have made the route, the journey to qualification a bit easier. So that's certainly an area that we think is one of our strengths. Actually, is our fielding. And it's something that wasn't firing when we were there. So fielding is going to be really important. We have to take every opportunity when this World Cup does come around. We have some great experience, like I said, through our unit, and especially in the batting. And we have guys who are able to hit the ball 360 degrees around the field. That is one of our strengths. We have pretty much every one of those batsmen coming in all the way down the order can sweep, reverse sweep, can hit over the top, can paddle, you name it, they can do it. And that is a real area that we've practiced to make sure we can continue scoring through the middle overs when the field then goes back, because you can manipulate the field. So that's really important. But yeah, and on the bowling front, it's just exciting what we have. We've got some fast bowling. I wasn't best pleased when we went to La Manga just before lockdown, and Chris Soul had just sort of been reintroduced back into the squad, and Chris can bowl fast, genuinely fast, and Shane thought kindly of that and decided, Kyle, you can have the first hit against him, and I was really appreciative of that as the first thing went sailing past my head. But to improve, you have to challenge each other, and you have to get the adrenaline going at times, and you have to practice at high intensity. Not all the time, but enough to make sure when the games come around that you've challenged yourself at the right level. So look, we've got some exciting players. We just need to pull it all together and be well prepped to go.
Yeah, well, for you guys to be the best, you have to beat the best. So the T20 World Cup is a great opportunity for you guys to showcase all that talent you've shown us already, especially in recent years. And yeah, hopefully we will see that tournament happen at some point or another. Now, before I let you go, Kyle, it'd be remiss of me not to mention that you are an emerging cricket ambassador. Tim Cutler would probably kill me if I don't mention it. But in terms of associate cricket and the associate movement, summing up the importance of associate cricket to you and progressing the standard of the game, but also the standard of popularity and in media coverage and stuff like that. How important is it to you?
Yeah, the associate game has probably been my life, really. I was fortunate enough to, I played many sports growing up, and I enjoyed them all, and for whatever reason, I decided to carry on with cricket, and cricket was the direction that I took. But throughout the county journey, that played a huge part in my growth as a player and as a person. But I think that and I've made some great friends and achieved some really really good things. I've been fortunate to win every trophy there was in England in the system, so I was very lucky with that. But I think where my heart always lay, and maybe because it's I'm Scottish and I was born there, and I'm very passionate about my country. I think maybe that is why my heart has always sort of been with associate cricket, and continuing to find that love for the game and the inspiration to try and encourage others to continue playing and growing the game is ultimately probably what I want to do. I want to be involved in cricket my whole life, hopefully, but it's so important to other countries to continue growing, get more people into the game. For me, it's just too segmented at the moment, and associate cricket needs to become more wholesome, more of a wholesome competition that everyone feels like they're involved. Everyone, each country will take their time to grow and develop, but if we don't have that feel, it's always going to be segmented. So we need to push this game forward. It's a special game we have, and we've got a duty of care to look after it, and that's the sort of journey I feel I'm on.
I'm not 100% sure where your camera has gone, Kyle, or
that
visual feed,
right.
but I can hear you loud and clear, and the message, is the most important part of all of this. So thank you for being part of our journey. To wrap things up, once again, thank you to everyone for tuning in. Glad that you guys were able to hear some of Kyle's story and some of Scotland's progress in associate and international cricket. Hopefully we get to see you in Australia come October, but whenever that World Cup is eventually played out, I'm sure you guys will, go fantastically well. So once again, Kyle Coetzer, thank you very much for joining us on the Emerging Cricket Live Show, and we hope to hear from you again very soon.
Thank you very much, Daniel, for having me, and I encourage everyone to catch up with emerging cricket as you keep doing your posts. They're always valuable posts, and there's always a real good background around it. And I look forward to hopefully maybe catching up with Anshuman Rath one day. We can have all of a bit of a chat in here. But I appreciate your time and spreading the love for the game. And I've seen there's some questions down the right hand side. So if anyone wants to maybe ask me those questions, just drop me them on Instagram or whatever, and I'll try and answer them. Instagram or Twitter or whatever. Give me a bit of a follow and see how we get on. But thanks very much for your time, guys, and I appreciate it, and we'll catch up soon.